This PowerPoint presentation is on web-based social cognition and a cultural comparison of the United States and Okinawa, Japan. Web-based social cognition are the various psychological processes and information humans use to assess others when interacting through technology. There's a conscious and unconscious assessment when we meet people so that we can figure out if they're harmful or safe for us. And this assessment happens fast. The fundamental attribution error is that we assess others based on internal qualities, based on that they're grouchy, and we assess ourselves based on external attributions, like that we were tired, that's why we were grouchy. Even though the assessment of others is done quickly by the brain, it's quite accurate. It's an interesting thing that researchers have found that both real-world and online perceivers use some of the same strategies when making first impressions. For example, when a person presents the nonverbal cue of smiling in the real world or on a web page, the person's first impression is generally perceived as positive. On the other hand, if you scowl or frown, the person seeing that picture on the internet will have a first impression that is negative. Research finds those who rated an online partner made less detailed but more intense personality descriptions of their partners than did those who interacted face-to-face. The more limited online cues regarding the other person may take on a more powerful meaning than if you had nonverbal cues to take into consideration when assessing another. For example, a photo of a man's face is on the internet. It reveals a sad, crying man. Not included in the web image is the tiny newborn baby with hair still wet from birth in the arms of the man crying its first breaths of life. What appears as sadness on the crying man's face in the internet photo are actually tears of overwhelming joy and happiness. So when a person sees an image on the internet, it may not show the whole picture, whereas if you are in real time, you're going to see the whole person and the whole picture. So our minds make a little different assessment when we make impressions on the internet. Culture is the specific, unique characteristics common to a group of people. Examples of shared characteristics are the place we're born, traditions, language, food, rules of the group. When accurately assessing others, culture is a factor to consider. Julian Borel explains there are 3 ways that you can relate to culture. You can confront, complain, or conform to it. When a person decides on the confrontation route of culture, you say, my way's the right way. The problem with holding your ground on my culture is the right culture is you're telling the other person their culture is not the right culture, and it makes them defensive, wanting to defend their culture. So confrontation does not work very well when dealing with other cultures. The second route is complaining. Complaining leads to blaming, and it leads to social isolation and groups segregating together. Political groups are typical of segregated groups complaining against the other groups, and it divides the culture. The best way to go is to conform with the culture, to sit back, to listen, to observe, to watch, and try to become a part of the culture and try to become unified with the culture. The culture comparison I decided on was Okinawa, Japan, because my son is a recent United States Marine boot camp graduate going into combat engineering, and Okinawa, Japan will be one of the places he most likely will be stationed, and I wanted to study the culture there before we go to visit him. One of the major differences between Japan and the United States is that in the industrial West, we're more egocentric or individual geared people, and we enjoy our freedoms, and we do not really appreciate social relationships as a strong, solid bond. On the other hand, in the Eastern Hemisphere in Japan, they identify with a group, and their social obligations are extremely important. Some of the interesting differences, because in Japan you have these lifelong friends, you have a strong social support network. Slurping food is one of the things that they do because of the kind of food they eat. It's got liquid in it. The person from Japan is probably not going to ever ask you if they get permission to take your picture. It's totally appropriate to blow your nose in public. They are to eat all their food on the plate, and the way they sit is with their legs folded underneath them. In the United States, we find few lasting friendships because we're egocentric. We like people to chew with their mouth closed. We generally ask for permission before taking photos. When we blow our nose, it's in private. There's various styles of eating. Eat till full, eat only what's on your plate, eat when hungry, and we definitely sit differently. In summary, I was very happy to do this cultural study because I thought that the Japanese culture was cold, and now I realize they're very warm people.